Think about what you have done in the past few months. Have you attended a concert, watched a movie, or read an entertainment magazine? Have you attended a sporting event or read an article about a favorite team or player? Have you traveled to another city or country, stayed at a hotel, or visited a tourist attraction? If so, you've probably been touched by public relations. These three areas of public relations are of particular interest to many PR students. You might work for one of the many sports teams in the country or the athletic department of a university, for a celebrity as a publicist at an entertainment venue or movie studio, for a resort or cruise line. There are some specific jobs listed here, such as Marriott hotels or other hotel chains, a film, sports team, cruise line, a tourism board such as Visit Tampa Bay, or an artist. It's important to remember, however, that despite the apparent glamour of these jobs, you are still using many of the same public relations tactics as you would if you work for a PR firm or a corporation. So working in entertainment, sports, or tourism public relations usually involves working as a publicist, generating media coverage or social media visibility, or organizing events or meetings. What happens is that publicists pitch stories and ideas to journalists about their client. Now, maybe you are trying to get your actor client on Jimmy Kimmel, or you're trying to get your athlete on an ESPN talk show, or you're trying to get your resort in Tahiti covered by Travel and Leisure. Damage control is an important task as you attempt to protect your client from bad publicity and generate positive coverage. In the situation of a crisis, you might have to issue a statement or host a news conference. You will also need to prepare your clients for interviews, particularly if they will be asked tough questions. So how are these three practices related? The first point is that all of them need strong branding and publicity. So whether you're working for a sports team or a hotel or a celebrity, they all need to have a brand. So one place to start is to conduct research to see what words or images the public associates with the entity, with your client. What image the entity wants to project and embed in the minds of the public. So I pulled one example from your book. This is from New Zealand. So if you think about the country of New Zealand, do you have any images or words that come to mind? And if, we ask a lot of people and they're all drawing blanks, then maybe the country of New Zealand needs a PR campaign. Now, if you watched these movies with the hobbits, you might know that they were filmed there, and you can go visit the village. So that's kind of a cool tourist attraction to tie it into a movie that people like. Another part or another way that these three are related is that they often are building relationships with major corporations or governments through sponsorships and other tie-ins. So for example, the Olympics, there will be Olympic sponsors that are tied in, and whether it's Coca-Cola or IBM or whoever it is, giving money to the games for the publicity and the advertising that they're going to get, and also the host country as well. So I believe our last Summer Olympics were in Tokyo, and that was affected by the pandemic, and they were a year late, but that would have been really great publicity and branding for the country of Japan. The next point about how these three are related, this mostly deals with entertainment and sports, because here you're often working with celebrities and you're acting as a celebrity publicist. So what are you trying to do? As I mentioned earlier, you're often working to get your client mentioned in the mass media, establish their social media presence, and then have them attend high visibility events. You can also assist with their media training and any kind of preparation that they would need for red carpet interviews. Can't forget about crisis management and image restoration, and many celebs are also brand ambassadors for different products and brands. And so if a crisis happens, that can impact the brand as well. So you might have to step in as a fixer and fix the situation. So I threw this example of LeBron James in here, and actually I just put this in here and not realizing how old this example already is. But when he made the decision to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers and go play for the Miami Heat, we had a whole television program about his decision that he was going to make, and he was going to announce his decision during this primetime broadcast. And what he said was, "I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat." Now, that was very painful for the Cleveland Cavaliers because he was like a hometown guy and, had done so much for that city and raising awareness and the team. And he had a big PR crisis on his hands when he did that. And then, if he returned to the Cleveland Cavaliers after being at the Miami Heat for 4 years. And then he had to stage kind of a comeback to the Cavaliers. So that took a lot of image restoration on the part of his publicist. I also pulled, since I mentioned that you try to get your clients mentioned in the mass media, when LeBron James was a junior in high school, he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So, he had a publicity machine behind him even then, which is just amazing to think about. Let's talk about promoting a personality. Again, whether that's an actor, singer, athlete, PR practitioners do help celebrities stay in the public eye and in demand. And usually for an up-and-coming celebrity, again, whether it's an athlete, actor, singer, etc., we want to create buzz for that person. So go back to think about the last slide with LeBron James on the cover of Sports Illustrated. That created a lot of buzz for him as an upcoming basketball superstar. And so what we can do as a PR practitioner is try to set up media interviews with our client. Most entertainment PR campaigns are for people who want publicity. And here are the steps that you can take, especially with an up-and-coming celebrity or up-and-coming artist who doesn't quite have public name recognition. And so if we consider Halle Bailey, for example, who starred in the live-action Little Mermaid, and maybe she wasn't quite as well known, what could we do to secure some media interviews for her? So we would compile a profile after interviewing her, and we would ask her about her childhood, her education, her interests, her life experiences, her passions, her family, her pets, whatever we wanted to, questions we wanted to ask her. So we had some kind of a profile. Then we would develop a media kit for her. We would develop a short bio based on what we learned from our interviews and what we know about her career. And we would have also offer news and feature angles in that. So like, what storylines or angles do we think about her would resonate with the media? We would want to have professional photos of her, like her headshot, her at different appearances or different events, other interesting images of her. We'd want to edit and compile all of her video clips of, short clips of performances or different interviews that she had done. Maybe, at this point she's just doing, before her recent fame, she was just doing like some local television news programs, news talk shows. And so we could compile those. And then we would want to assemble the bio, the photos, the videos, any kind of additional background about her into a printed or digital media kit. We also want to think about what are we selling here when we're pitching her? Are we selling her, or are we selling, say, the Little Mermaid? So think about what are we selling. And then you want to determine the most important audiences to reach. So, maybe for her, it's a younger audience, or, maybe an audience of parents that would take their children to see the Little Mermaid. And then what channels and tactics that we would use. So, maybe if it's the parents, we might want to go after like late night television or the Today Show, etc. If it's younger people, of course, we would want to use social media. Then you pitch the editors, the producers, the journalists at those outlets for interviews with her, and we give you the story angles. Here's the media kit, and then we can also submit this to news agencies like AP or Reuters. Here are some other tactics that you can use for promoting a personality. Publicists coordinate opportunities for their celebrity clients to appear in public places or at high-profile events. And so those are usually set up by somebody. In addition to those more glamorous opportunities, you might also have your client attend a conference, a trade show. I've been to trade shows like the Consumer Electronics Show, which was really great, but they were celebrities, and not big ones, but celebrities around that show for different, representing different clients. And then a store opening, for example. Celebrities can also promote products, so getting product deals for them can be helpful. Publicists can also help to build a strong following on social media for the celebrity, as well as create content with them, for them. And then finally, sometimes you need to be aware that you could hit a crisis situation with your client. And in this situation, you would want to issue the public statement or hold a news conference and then get your celebrity ready to answer the tough questions that they are going to face. Finally, you will want to show your client how effective your public relations efforts have been. And you can do this by compiling all of your clients' video clips, newspaper and magazine mentions, published photographs. One step kind of before that is to write objectives for your campaign. So, if it's an up and coming person, we want to make the public aware of this celebrity or be aware of our athlete. We would use evaluative research to measure the extent to which these objectives were achieved. So if it was like awareness, we would need to see if we feel like that celebrity has gained awareness. Maybe it's overcoming a crisis situation and we want to see like how their reputation is, post our campaign. You'd give the client tear sheets, like I said before, which would be original copies of print coverage, photos, copies of the news releases that you sent, the video clips, and any kind of stats on social media followers. There are services out there like Cision and Vocus that can help you compile all the mentions of your celebrity. And sometimes it's hard, they're mentioned in so many publications, and these resources can help, or these services can help. Other measures could be click-through rates, reach, like how many people saw the posts, engagement rates, so how many people liked or commented. You could look at a sentiment analysis of people posting about your client on social media, and are they saying good or bad things about your client, or any kind of call to action request. This one's a little bit of an oddball, but they mention in the book, like if your client, maybe they were some kind of activist and wanted people to sign a petition or something like that, you could see if your celebrity client was effective in getting people to sign the petition. Entertainment events, including movies, fashion shows, theater performances, musical performances, and premieres of Netflix series, require publicity campaigns to attract an audience, and usually the end goal is to sell tickets. The stories, you hope, will focus on personality, styles, or popularity of the program or the artist. And also, you should, as the PR professional, consider fresh angles. So what's new this week that we can share? What's new this week? Film festivals and awards, even nominations that your client might get or your movies or television series might get, can also boost their publicity. Many entertainment events rely on the principle of drip, 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 which is a steady output of information about a television show, movie, or other event. For films, usually a PR practitioner called a unit person will be assigned to turn out stories and host media visitors during the production. Television networks will also mail out daily news bulletins to the media, including shows like TMZ and entertainment bloggers. So consider the release of the movie Barbie, which opens summer of 23. There have been so many stories from this movie, about this movie. Been so many marketing tactics that have been used, PR, advertising as well. So it's just been a very interesting case study. So a few other points here is that you would invite reporters to preview the programs and interview the stars of the program. PR also works closely with advertising, sales promotion, and any product tie-ins. So for the Barbie movie, for example, I just saw an ad this morning for Chevy, I think it's the Chevy Blazer, and it was tied to the Barbie movie. I think it had Barbie jumping in the Chevy Blazer. So that's Chevrolet has paid to have that association with the Barbie movie. Let's talk about the promotion for the movie Eternals, which is something that your book talks about. I'm not actually familiar with this movie. I don't know if it's a big hit or a big bomb, but the book does have a pretty comprehensive discussion of their promotional campaign. It starts with a poster that was released on Instagram months ahead, and then a teaser trailer, some photos, and some ads for the movie. So, starting to build excitement. You're also seeing some photos that were coming out at the top over here is some photos of the set which made for interesting stories. Also, product and brand tie-ins. So for this movie, Lexus was one of the partners and made a version of the car for every character in the movie. So you can see how this product tie-in could be advertising, because they could run a paid ad with that car, or just a lot of like promotional events like this one that you see here, where the celebrity is there and you're just getting a lot of PR for this really cool car. There's also film premiere events. You can see Angelina Jolie attending the film premiere, and then the stars of the movie, the director, lots of people doing media interviews on behalf of the movie. Let's talk about promoting theater productions. So here are some tactics that your book suggests when you're talking about, say, a Broadway show. Maybe it's a touring Broadway show and it's at our local Straz Center. So some of the tactics that you would use here, you would have a website as a portal to your organization or the production. So for example, I have the Straz Center, which is in downtown Tampa, and you can see what productions are coming out. So somebody has to maintain that. You should have a presence on social media. You also want to maintain your subscriber database and communicate with those subscribers. So those are people who have bought season tickets or maybe just bought tickets from you in the past. You want to have some attractive brochures that can be mailed out. Of course, that doesn't work for a younger audience, but definitely works for an older audience, and they may be the ones more likely to go see shows. Having a digital media kit for every production that the theater is doing, where you'd have news releases, bios, and photos. You can pitch story ideas about the cast or the production to journalists. I pulled this one from the Broadway show 6, which a kind of an interesting story is that the night they were set to open the show was the night that Broadway closed for the pandemic. So that kind of made an interesting story angle. And then Broadway was actually closed for quite a long time. And then, how do we keep people still interested in seeing Broadway shows? When the Broadway is closed, they put out stories, the cast is rehearsing. They just had to keep that funnel of content going out into the press so that people would not forget about Broadway. It's actually a great show, by the way, if you can see it. And I think it really would apply to young people like yourselves, especially young women. So the next point is to invite journalists to opening night, give them access to conduct media interviews with people related to the production, the stars. You would want to have special events for donors and corporate sponsors. So maybe your job is to organize those. Also influencers, we don't want to forget about those. Your book doesn't mention those, but I know a lot of theaters use influencers. And then partnerships with other arts organizations in town and other businesses in the community. Let's talk about target audience research. So when you're thinking about pitching your movie, your theater production, your celebrity, you want to think about who is this person or thing going to appeal to. And so you'd want to segment your audience according to demographics, psychographics, and then determine which segment you're going to target. Determine the best tactics and messages for that audience. Now, most film publicity and promotion is aired at a young audience and uses social and digital media because those are the people most likely to go to the theaters. Your book says Gen X. I don't know. I disagree, and I think that what I read supports that it's a much younger audience. Gen X is very old now. We still do use magazines, newspapers, and television shows, or like an entertainment show to promote movies and celebrities. A couple facts about some demographic groups. Hispanic and Latinx audiences are 18% of the U.S. population, but they're 25% of frequent moviegoers. So it's important to think about targeting that audience as well in your communications. And then daily audiences of the viewing shows and movies on mobile devices is skewed toward younger, no surprise there. And then also Hispanic and Latinx audiences and African American and Black audiences. How do you stand out to viewers? This section starts out by talking about jobs in the entertainment industry, which doesn't exactly fit here in my mind, but just so you are aware, most entertainment public relations jobs are in LA for film and television, and a little bit less so in New York, but New York is where theater is concentrated. And all the studios and networks have a PR staff, but there's also independent PR firms that work in the entertainment industry. And some of the PR firms will serve a celebrity or a corporation or brand that wants to promote themselves using movies or television shows. So again, how do we stand out to viewers? The clients, your client celebrities, can attend movie premieres, special screenings, other industry events. We kind of talked about that before. Some of the other tactics that you can use, you might have a social media contest to win tickets to a movie premiere, or a radio contest to win tickets to a local theater to see the movie. You can hold global events, premiere events in several major cities. So when we think about the movie premiere, it's not usually just the LA premiere. Sometimes there's a London premiere and a Tokyo premiere. And so each of those can generate more and more publicity for your movie or your celebrity clients. And then for television pilots or television series, you can do a media tour or have those people available, have your celebrities available for personal appearances. Sports is a big business in the United States, no surprise there. And your objective in sports public relations is to get people interested in the teams or players, to sell tickets, and to promote the corporate sponsors. And you might also work with marketers to drive sales of branded products. And in sports public relations, you often utilize the full range of public relations specializations, such as media relations, corporate social responsibility, where you have your athletes like doing good in the community. If you think about the Lightning, I don't know if you know this, but they have, I think they call it Hometown Hero. Every Lightning game, they give away $50,000 to somebody who's doing some good, like charity or nonprofit work in the community. So, we're lucky to have such a wealthy owner of the Lightning, Jeff Vinnick, that gives out that $50,000 every game. Crisis communications, digital media, etc. Here are some tactics that you can use for sports publicity. You would want to prepare news releases for each game, video clips from each game that you give to the media. There are probably definitely other times besides just games that you would want to prepare news releases. You're constantly, finding stories about the team. Again, whether they're doing their charity work or there's something interesting about a player, you're putting out news releases for those. You want to develop and distribute media kits about the players, the team, etc. You would arrange media interviews for players and coaches, maintain the team website and post content on social media, monitor comments on the team's social media accounts or just what people are saying out there outside your own social media accounts, provide information to visiting teams and sports journalists, maintain the press box at games, and then also doing community relations for the team. So your job might be a subset of some of these tactics. You wouldn't have to do all of them. The sports industry has had its share of crises, from player strikes to bad off-field behavior by players. Some of the other examples here are just the high ticket prices, again, the bad behavior, doping cover-ups. And for PR is really necessary here to help the player or the team move on from the crisis. Pulled this example, Tom Brady, when he was with the Patriots, and we had our Deflategate scandal where they thought he was maybe deflating the balls a little bit for easier passing and catching. So you can see cheaters exit here. Sponsorships are an important part of sports public relations, and tens of billions of dollars are spent annually to sponsor sporting events. PR and marketing people are needed to sell sponsorship packages and then manage relationships with sponsors. And sponsors will need to be convinced that their scholarship dollars are paying off for them in terms of awareness or attitude toward the company. So some of the strategies that you can use are to have a sponsor name your stadium. That's our Tropicana Field where the Tampa Bay Rays play. You can have team or athlete sponsorship. So this is the Nike products that they wear, the Adidas that they wear. I pulled this example from the Barcelona Football Club in Spain, where Rakuten has a team sponsorship and they wear these Rakuten jerseys, which seems so funny to me, but whatever. You can also have co-branding and event sponsorship. So one of the examples from your book, the BBVA Bank co-brands their bank products. So if they give out a koozie or whatever to their customers, it has the University of Alabama logo on it. They also have signage at games, and they sponsor Alabama Football Pro Day. So for all those efforts, you would want to help your sponsors through analytics and research show the value of the sponsorship. So when Tropicana Field or Amalie Arena or Raymond James puts their name on a stadium in Tampa or St. Pete, You want to show them that, hey, this is raising awareness of your company. It's changing people's attitudes. They think better, more highly of the company now because the name is on the stadium. And think about how much the name is said, in a sports broadcast or in the media. So the name recognition really gets out there. Your book also mentions name, image, likeness, which is new legislation that's passed. Our athletes in the class are probably very aware of this, where college athletes can now benefit from their name, their image, their likeness. They can work with sponsors, they can create social media content and be paid, which was something that they weren't allowed to do before. So similar in the way that many people are influencers on social media, athletes can now be influencers as well and be paid for endorsing products. The travel industry in the United States is even larger than the sports. You might work for a destination like a theme park, a resort, or a country. You might work for a visitors bureau, or you might work for a cruise line. There's many job possibilities in travel and tourism public relations. The goal of travel PR is to encourage people to visit various destinations, whether it's a city, a resort, or a country. Another goal might be to get convention planners to host their events in a certain city. So the first step in travel public relations is to stimulate people's desire to visit the destination. And PR practitioners can use media relations to get coverage in newspapers and magazines. They can send brochures through direct mail. They can use social media or other forms of digital advertising. So you can see in this photo an example of a PR firm that specializes in travel PR. They list here many of the publications where their clients have received coverage. The magazine Organic Spa, for example, highlighted client Rancho La Puerta within their list of top 10 organic spas. So that's usually a result of a PR pitch. Another task in travel PR is to arrange for travelers to reach the destination, which might include cooperation with a tour company, and finally, assuring guests have a good time while they are in your city or staying in your resort. When promoting a destination, you must think about how to package it so that it appeals to a specific target audience. Will you target older adults, 20-somethings, men, women, couples? You will want to create special appeals or trips for that target audience. You also want to monitor trends that can vary among segments. So are there any trends right now in travel? So your book suggests maybe exotic trips or trips off the beaten path. Instead of going to London and Paris, you want to go somewhere more exotic. Greenland, I've heard, is opening up for more tourism. So maybe that's a trend that's going on. So different trips appeal to different ages and incomes. You can think about cruises as something for older people, but there are certainly cruise lines. I think of Carnival that targets more of a younger audience. When you're targeting older audiences, the older generation, you can use articles in travel magazines. You can mail them brochures. When you are targeting a younger audience, of course, you want to think about social media. I pulled this example from Singapore that did a branding campaign a few years ago, and they did a great job of segmenting travelers that might come to Singapore and then designed or shared with them what they could experience within that segment. So this came right from their website, and they put the segments right on there. So whether you consider yourself to be a foodie or an explorer or a collector or a socializer or an action seeker or a culture shaper, you will find something that appeals to you in Singapore. How do you communicate the appeal of travel? Here are some tactics that you can use if you work in tourism and travel public relations. You can get your client or try to get your client talked about in travel articles in magazines, newspapers, or news websites. You can get your client on a TV segment that's on a lifestyle show. You can send brochures by direct mail. You can create travel films yourself and create YouTube videos. You can put virtual tours on your website, use social media posts, of course, influencers as well. I pulled this from Travel Tom. I wasn't familiar with him before, but he appears to be a big travel influencer, and have the travel influencers work for you. There's some ethical issues. So large media organizations don't often want their reporters taking freebie trips. And so often, if you're a resort, you would invite a reporter to come, all expenses paid. And the large media organizations are a little less inclined for their reporters to take such freebies because they're kind of getting paid in a freebie, hopefully to give good media coverage. Smaller organizations, they kind of have to take the freebie because they don't have the budget for that. But you should provide full disclosure if a reporter was comped. The story should provide that. And then also think about sustainable travel and tourism. Your book does a good job of some places that have been really overloaded with tourists. And then, what do you do? How do you manage that? And one place I read about recently was Antarctica, that there are so many cruises going to Antarctica that they're worried that it's disturbing the natural environment down there. And it's already having a lot of issues, but do we really need tens of thousands and maybe 100,000 or more tourists landing on Antarctica and walking around? The final area of public relations in the travel industry is dealing with crises. So cruise lines have also suffered several crises. One of them you can see here on the right is the Costa Concordia. It is a Carnival cruise line ship. It ran aground on the coast of Italy. It tipped on its side. It caused passenger deaths, and it was just a really tragic situation. There was a lot of bad press because the captain of the ship, he is supposed to be the last person off, and he got off pretty quickly. Another example from Carnival is on the left. This cruise was nicknamed the Poop Cruise, and so there's two examples of problems with Carnival. I have another example from Royal Caribbean. It was continuing to dock at the port of Labadee in Haiti after the island had suffered a massive earthquake. And so while tourists were enjoying the good life on Haiti, Haitians were trying to survive without water. In this presentation, we discussed how public relations operates in the entertainment, sports, and travel industries. All of these areas of public relations represent growing opportunities for PR practitioners.